Red Flags is a piece by Lise Bell, which is helping to raise awareness in schools and beyond, looking to bring it to the Wolverhampton and Walsall areas in the Midlands. She joins me now to tell me more about the project. How you doing?
I'm all right, Jason. Thanks for meeting me today. It's been a while.
It's been a while. We were talking about your written word last time, and not performance pieces as well. So remind people about that work to begin with.
Yeah, so I had a book out called Writing the Wrongs. I've also got one called The Midlife Illness Tour, and you interviewed me about that probably about 3 years ago now. When I was living down in sunny Cannock, but I've moved back home to Yorkshire now. But Cannock and the Mids is still in my heart.
And and an area which has been in some parts has formed sort of the work you're doing, because when you're looking at the areas of mental health and the coercive control that you've seen, I mean, this is something which is unfortunately endemic across the UK, and you've been able to talk with people who are victims wherever you've laid your hat.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually worldwide, and I am going to talk to you about some exciting things that are happening with the play that I've written in terms of being commissioned over in America. So, yeah, it's going beyond the Midlands and over to the States as well.
Yeah, so give us the background to red flags then, because as the name
Like,
suggests, this is things to look out for in a form which is digestible. You have a red flag.
I have my red flag. I've got about, oh, I don't know, usually order about 100 of these on a weekly basis. So, Uh, back at the end of 2022, I sat down with my teenage daughter and said, "Do you know what? I'm going to go into schools and I'm going to go and talk about coercive control, domestic abuse, and I'm going to call it Red Flags, this workshop." And she just went, "No, mum. No one wants to see an old lady with a PowerPoint. And if I do a Kanak accent, it'd be, no, mum, no one wants to see an old lady with a PowerPoint." So that was that was kind of the thing that sparked off this. I have an acting background. I acted in my early 20s professionally, but then spent years in corporate leadership development. And my daughter said, "Write something." I've become a bit of a prolific writer in the last 8 years. So I decided to write a show and call it Red Flags and aim it at teenagers, adolescents. And the more research I did on teenage relationships, the more I found out that actually under 21s, there's a high 1 in 3 young people, both boys and girls, experience a coercively controlling relationship before they hit 21. So it is an issue that needs addressing. I wrote this theatre production, which is not a full end to end play. So I know you interview loads of people within the performing community, um, but this is not a full end to end play. It's theatre and education. It's an interactive piece, and the audience are very much part of the show. So that's where we're at in terms of it. Since March of last year, we've seen over 7,000 young people, and we are partnering with 45 different organisations, from schools to councils to police forces across the country. So there you go. That's where we're at with it.
Even though this isn't a new problem, actually it's been exacerbated by the ease of social media and communication. And whereas if you wanted to talk to someone from school when I was a kid, you had to know their phone number, ring them, or turn up on their doorstep. These days, you're in someone's pockets. You're on their screen in front of you. You're even in the glasses, the headset they're wearing to play games. You can be everywhere, and that sort of accessibility to your peers has really probably dragged this problem out much more into the open in some ways, but also has made it hide behind the screen.
Yeah, and as has COVID, I mean, since we last spoke, COVID's happened. So, I haven't spoken to you for that long, that we've had a pandemic in between. And COVID brought this stuff to the surface. Technology does have a huge part to play in coercive control. But there was also a piece of legislation that was brought out in 2015, which is now being exercised by the police. It is unlawful to control someone's life to a point that they can't live a normal everyday life. And it comes with a 15-year custodial sentence. Young people don't always realise this, and they don't always realise that some of their behaviours might be controlling and might be preventing people from living a normal life. So part of our work, and I say our because I've got a team of 26 actors and a couple of facilitators that work for me, part of our work is early intervention. So getting in there before people kind of are in these relationships, or getting them to realise that actually, well, my behaviour might not be great. And that's what this piece does. We use actors and we use facilitation to get the point across. Yeah, and someone described it as Jeremy Kyle on acid.
The coercive side of things. I mean, as you, I think, as you alluded to there, someone might not only not be doing it intentionally, but not realize they're doing it. They're doing something which they feels right to them to try and maybe, cajole is probably where they're going to, but actually it's more a much more serious situation.
Yeah, I'm going to put a caveat on that and say, actually, we're talking about young people here.
Mhm.
Adults know the difference between right and wrong. And actually, when it's done by an adult, it is usually very intentional. Sometimes young people might have learned behavior because they've grown up in households where this has happened. They've seen it play out through people who they perceive to be their role models. And that's where we step in. We kind of do it in a way that is not intrusive, is not offensive, is not in their face, and he's not the old lady with the PowerPoint, as my daughter said. It is literally a show which gets people to discuss this. You know, I have grown adults that come and they go, actually, it's making me question my own behavior. Brilliant. That's what we want to do. We want audiences to go away talking about the themes that they've seen. And actually, is that some of their own behavior, or actually is it something that's really abusive and quite destructive?
And we see in adult life that it could well be tracking somebody's phone so you know where they are. There's all sorts of ways technology has crept into reinforcing other behaviours.
There's a whole piece in the show around snap maps, and the character does it very subtly. So the perpetrator character, the abuser character, will meet the victim at a party. So, oh, can you add me on Snapchat? So they add on Snapchat. Then they go on a first date. It's like, oh, can you add me on Snap Maps? Well, young people know that Snap Maps is a stalker tool. Everybody can see what's going on, where you are, and the exact location. So it brings up all these conversations around, well, should you have your snap maps open public, should you let somebody follow you? So we're tackling all this as part of the show.
And it's putting that thought into how you may be allowing yourself to be vulnerable, even though you just want to be able to get on and live your life. And it's down to, we talk about very often what women wear when they go out, and oh, that is asking to be treated in a certain way. And of course, proper society, no, it's not. It is you being comfortable with who you are, and being the person you want to be, and nobody should be allowed to turn that against you just because you're out enjoying yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and we do talk about it. So I introduce the young people that we work with to certain abuse tactics and terms that are used. We have giant flashcards that do that. So while someone's just described it as Jeremy Kyle on acid, I actually describe it as a bit of Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway, where the audience are getting involved, but we're tackling really serious societal issues. It's got all the elements of a Saturday night talk show, a pantomime, and a little bit of Jeremy Kyle. It should not work, but it does. And we're getting repeat we're getting, I don't like to use the word business because we are a not for profit, but we're getting repeat people coming through. So every year, we're now on our second year cycle with schools, with colleges going, we love what you do. It's amazing. The kids are talking about it. So, yeah. And, this coercive control thing and technology, as you go, if I'm going to go back, because I've gone off on a tangent, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just bringing it to the fore, really, and saying, look, these are all the tools that are at your fingertips that actually someone can either control you or you can use in a negative way. Audience, it's a societal issue as well, because sometimes, and we do this when we interview the characters and get inside their heads, they're oblivious to what they're doing and what's going on. So it's society's responsibility to step in and be those active bystanders. And that's what we do with the red flags. They do stop the action, they do step in, and they do go, hang on a minute, if he was my mate, this is what I'd be doing. Or if she was my friend, this is what I'd be saying.
It's that moment of thought, that moment of conversation that can stop somebody becoming a problem because you've highlighted where the issues are. Now, that doesn't mean that some people won't become adults who behave in this way, and everybody at some point will probably want to, again, hopefully, only cajole somebody to doing what they want to do. But it should always be your option. You should never feel obliged to do something that you don't want to do. And however your relationship's built up, whether you're friends or partners, whatever your the interaction is, there are rules, there are ground rules, and they are your own.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at things like seatbelts, so back in the day, people didn't wear seatbelts. I want this to be as socially unacceptable as not wearing a seatbelt. So someone bullying someone, coercing someone, being downright controlling of their life to be as bad as not wearing a seatbelt. It
Well,
become cultural, and that's
you
what we're aiming for.
the safety harness for society is red flags, and if you do wish to book this, it is available for schools, and you say you and your team can travel pretty much anywhere to bring this to your
Yeah,
audiences.
we've done quite a bit of work in Leicester recently, so we are moving down the country, and as I say, we're going over to America. The organisation's called Soundproof Box, so we can be found at soundproofbox.org. But this show is called Red Flags, and we have actually taken the red flags methodology over to bullying and drink spiking as well. So we've got a couple of different shows that are aimed at unacceptable behaviours in and around those topics too.
Yeah. So whether it's a school, youth group, an organisation, and
Please.
workplaces as well, I'm sure that this would sit very comfortably in to make sure that everyone can sit comfortably at work too.
Yeah, psychological safety at work is what we call it in terms of the workplace side of stuff. So yeah, soundproofbox.org. You can check us out. We're on every bit of social media. We've got some great video clips, and we did our first show for featuring a same-sex relationship on Friday. So I wrote the show for a gay couple, and that was delivered at a school in the army base up in North Yorkshire.
All angles and all communities needs to make sure that we have an understanding, and it's that space that that others need, and it's our behavior which can, as we say, often unintentionally, but certainly should be raising red flags to others. Lise Cable, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason.